Well, after all the excitement of the last few days, markets are kind of just barely a little bit down right now. It's too early to figure out what's happening with Tesla, but I will report that later tonight in the 7:45 show, 7:45 California time. It was up on Friday, and of course, it was up in the after hours to $327 a share. That's a long way to go to get to 488, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. I think maybe the reason the markets are only down a little bit, and in fact, oil is only up a little bit, is that I spent a lot of time over the last 3 days trying to listen to what's happening with the war between Israel and Iran. And I think most people are probably thinking that Israel has all the cards right now. And they not only have all the cards, but they seem to have the tricks too. So I just made that up on the fly. Anyway, they just blew up a bunch of vehicles with more high-ranking people in them just an hour or so ago. Anyway, we'll see what other tricks. They said they got more tricks coming. So I hate to sound like a play-by-play analyst on something as important as war and peace and people dying, but let's face it, in some ways, it feels like that. Okay, I want to talk about something with regard to my video from this morning. First of all, if you didn't see it, you absolutely need to go see it. It is kind of, yeah, could call it maybe one of the most important videos I've ever put up. It kind of talks about the shift in emphasis, or not even the shift in emphasis, a complete shift in the way that Elon is looking at the company, as looking at Tesla. And there was a couple of things that I don't think I was super clear about. Now, I'm going to give you this add-on right now, but I can't go back through the whole video from this morning in order to do it. So hopefully it'll make sense, even though I can't, review everything that I talked about. So what I talked about was that Robotaxi will disrupt the automobile sales so badly over the next 3 to 4 years that there will be an insignificant number of vehicles produced in the world that require a driver in 2029. An insignificant. And unless some car companies are able to achieve a low-cost version or some unique niche version of self-driving vehicles by that time, Tesla will stand alone. Now, maybe there'll be companies this year or next who will start to license Tesla's full self-driving suite and or some of the other things that they do with their cars, like the unbox method, in order to compete with Tesla. But if they don't, I think it's going to be too late. I think if they don't do it, if they start saying, oh my gosh, we've really blown it in 2027, it's going to be too late. Vehicles requiring LiDAR and other expensive equipment are unlikely to be competitive and won't get to scale, and Tesla will be so far ahead in data that their product will be just tons and tons better than anybody else's product, and they'll have such a lead in terms of the unit volumes that are out there offering ride-hail services that there won't be a second place. So therefore, this is kind of where I got to add on here. Now, this is, again, in order for you to see my whole argument, you're going to have to go back and see that video, and I will put the card up in a minute, but it was this morning's video, so it's not hard to find. So the argument I made, I think I think you'll have a hard time blowing holes in it. And this is so therefore what I believe is that Elon Musk's all-in approach to Robotaxi includes this understanding. Now, it's an understanding that I've had for 2 years. I mentioned this morning in the video. I think about the future all the time. And for the last 2 years, I've been sitting there going, how in the world are we still going to be selling any cars in the late 2020s? How's that? Why, they're going to have to, it's going to all be robotaxis. I believe that Elon's thought that for a very long time. And this is where all this business comes about him not wanting to do the Model 2, Model Q, whatever you want to call it, because at this point, there is no long-term benefit to creating fantastic cars for people to own and to drive. All Tesla needs to do is stay at the forefront of great BEVs for the next 3 years while the switch to self-driving takes place. They've already got the Model Y, the best-selling car in the world. They've already got the Model 3, the best-selling BEV sedan. They've got probably this Model Q coming along, which will be fine as another transitionary car. They'll probably drop the price on Cybertrucks, but I don't think it's going to matter. They've just updated the Model X and the Model X, which will just keep it going for another couple of years. It's just a holding place. We're just in a holding pattern as this massive switch takes place. And I don't see how it doesn't. And I believe that's what Elon is seeing also. I think that's what Cathie Wood sees. I think that's what a lot of people that are smarter than me, but like I said, I've been thinking this for 2 years now. I just didn't want to say it out loud until now. Anyway, at some point in the next 3 years, all of Tesla's output will be for either the Tesla fleet or for others who are buying cars for their own ride-hailing fleets. And I think that's the bet that Elon has made. He's not just betting that Tesla will win the ride-hailing business. He's betting that the entire car business will be nothing but ride-hailing. There'll be no personal cars at all sold after 2028 or 2029. There'll be rare exceptions with some unique niche vehicles and whatnot, but for the large part, it'll be all over. As I mentioned this morning, that means that a lot of car companies are going to go bust in the next 3 years, just like we saw magazine companies and car companies and not car and newspaper companies and flashlight companies and various kinds of phone device companies. And, you've seen these disruptions before. This one is going to be fast and it's going to be horrific. And there's not going to be anything the federal government or the Chinese government can do about it because it's not going to be saving a company. There's not going to be anything left to save. There's not going to be a business to go bankrupt and to recover from because they won't have self-driving vehicles. Now, if you want to go back and see the details of my analysis this morning, I will put the card, well, I'll put the card up later. I'll put it up at the end. Also, I've had a bunch of requests on X in the comments and also, I'm sorry, the X on X and also in my comments here to kind of restate my price target of the all-time high in the next 10 days or so. So we're sitting here at maybe 327, and we're only 10 days away from the theoretical date. And so going from 337 to 488 would not be impossible. Tesla's moved that fast before. But here's the analysis, just so you understand. Remember, it's really not about my price target because maybe it'll only be 460, maybe it'll be 440, maybe it'll be 2 weeks late. That's not really what matters. What really matters is the underlying analysis. Okay. And the reason I came to the conclusion that we would hit that number at this time is because last time we hit the all-time high, it was achieved in a very risk-on period. Okay. So that's your macro. And it was based on a better economy for autos and a better administration regarding Tesla and especially the regulations for Robotaxi at a national level rather than state by state. So those are the issues. Number one, a risk-on market. Number two, better economy for car sales. Number three, a robotaxi situation where Tesla can just roll out nationwide. If they prove their case in Austin, Los Angeles, San Francisco, etc., they can just go nationwide and then turn on the Airbnb version, and it'll be the end of the story. Well, therefore, the investing public believed Tesla was worth 488 based on the Robotaxi business. Yeah, there was probably a little bit in there for Optimus as well, but basically it was for the Robotaxi business. Now that the Robotaxi business is rolling out and the market is risk on, and the US, the UN, and the EU, not just the US, but the UN and the EU are seemingly getting very, very close to coming out with rules governing self-driving. And then there's China as well. China as well seems to be getting very, very close to putting the rules out. Therefore, if the company was worth 488 then, it is worth that right this minute, but it might take a couple of weeks for the folks to get it. What do you want to call it? The FOMO should be, well, that might have been Friday. We were probably looking at some FOMO on Friday. We should see the FOMO beginning to build. We should be getting back to that number. Again, will it be exactly 2 weeks after the 10th? Will it be 2 weeks after the 22nd? I don't know. I really don't. But it's going to be soon, very, very soon. Will it get all the way to 488? Yeah, I was mocked last time when I was off by 72 cents on the exact date that I predicted of the first time we got to 310, or no, the second time we got to 310. I wasn't mocked at all last year when I predicted 410, and and Brian Wong was at 450, and we blew past both of those and went to 488. Anyway, that's my theory. I'm sticking to it. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. Now, a few issues could change that. A risk-off market due to war, due to high oil prices, so that might help Tesla. Elon's fight with Trump, but that seems to be over. Or there could be lower than expected unit vehicle sales. And, people are probably a little upset that it's going to be less than they think. But you know what? It doesn't really matter anymore. It's not about vehicle sales. So I'm sticking with it. My price target holds. The only issue is with the definition of what 2 weeks means. And so I know I've moved the goalposts here and there, and now I'm kind of being a little wishy-washy about which goalpost. But let's just say no later than 2 weeks after June 22nd. And that would be like July 7th or something, and probably before that. This is Randy Kirk. Hit the like and subscribe and notify button. There will be another show tonight at 7:45. On that one. I'm gonna give you my list of what I wish. If I could sit down with Elon Musk right now and ask him a bunch of questions, I'm going to tell you what those questions are and what I think the answers would be, the best I can tell in the situation, without really knowing anything in some cases. But these are the questions. These, I believe, are the burning questions that are probably on your heart as well. But let's talk about them. You can let me know what maybe some of those questions would be that you would have. You could also join Patreon. That would be fantastic. Okay, what's happening this week? First of all, on Monday, we'll have the Empire State Manufacturing Survey. And last month, it was down 9.2%. They're thinking it'll be down 6% this month. Maybe not. There's so much happening in manufacturing right now. It's really hard to get your arms around it. We do know that there's been people who've been purchasing overseas who are now coming back to their manufacturers in the U.S. That could be impacting it. But we are also hearing that freight loads are down a little bit, but maybe it's just too early for the freight to be going up as a result of outbound sales. Maybe they will be down in terms of orders shipped in the last month, but maybe the numbers will be good with regard to orders in the building for shipping later. Anyway, we'll see what happens with the Empire State Manufacturing Survey on Monday. Then on Tuesday, we get U.S. retail sales. Last month, they were up 0.1%. Here, they're suggesting that retail sales are going to be down 0.6. Now, that probably has to do with vehicle sales being down after the big bump in the prior month in April. That could be exactly what it is, because you see, if you take retail sales minus autos, which were also up 0.1 last month in April, they're thinking that'll be up 0.2%, meaning that auto sales would need to be down significantly for both of those things to be true. Then you got the import price index. That was up 0.1% last month. They're saying that the import price index will be down 0.2%. Now, that's pretty wild when you consider the whole tariff kerfluffle, all right? Import prices index minus fuel was up 0.4% last month. They're thinking that will be flat, or I think that's what they're saying there. Either that, or they're not giving a guess. I can never figure out what this means. All right, so then we got industrial production. Last month was flat. They think that industrial production will also be down just a tad at 0.1 negative. Capacity utilization, which was 77.7, which is a little on the low side. They're saying that will stay at 77.7. Business inventories, which again, I don't normally care about, but right now there is evidence, that if business inventories are good, not rising, then that would say that all that advanced inventory that was brought in from other countries has flowed through the system. And last month it was up 0.1%, which is nothing. And this month they're predicting it's going to be 0.00. No change. All right, now we start getting into the home builder area. Home builder confidence last month was at 34, which is pretty low. They're thinking it'll pop up a little bit to 36. And then we have a bunch of other housing stuff coming on Wednesday. So you have housing starts. Last month was 1.36 million. They're thinking that goes up to 1.37. Building permits, 1.41. The last month they're saying it's going to go up to 1.44. I'm not sure why there's so much enthusiasm about the housing market unless it's just pent-up demand, and that could be. Yeah, one of the things that we've seen in history is if you don't get your demand, like for instance, in this case, the demand usually starts in March. So if you don't get your demand in a seasonal business in the early part of the season, March and April, then sometimes no matter what's happening with prices, no matter what's happening with mortgages, et cetera, that pent-up demand catches up. And maybe that's what's happening because mortgages are still pretty high, but prices are coming down just a little bit, especially in some parts of the country. Then we got initial jobless claims, which for the last 2 weeks have been at 248. They think that's going to stay around the same at 250,000, although that would be higher. 2 o'clock on Wednesday, we get the Fed giving their interest rate decision, which nobody thinks is going to be anything other than flat, no decision. And then we'll have the press conference from the Fed chair that afternoon at 2:30 Eastern time. Both of those are Eastern time, 2 o'clock and 2:30 Eastern time. Thursday, nothing scheduled because it is Juneteenth. Friday, Friday, June 20th, we have the Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Survey, which was down 4% last month. They're thinking it will be down only 1% this month. Interesting, it's going in the opposite direction of New York. Now, a lot of times these different Fed districts are completely different than one another, so that wouldn't be totally surprising. And then finally at 10 o'clock Eastern time or 7 o'clock California time. So I should be able to include this in my Friday morning reporting, which by the way, you've noticed is a little later now. That was down. The U.S. leading economic indicators were down 1% last month. They're thinking it will be down 1% more. Good. That's an interesting. I think this will be really interesting, even though nobody pays any attention to it anymore. All right. What about reports from earnings from different companies? Okay, we got the home builder, so we've got all these home analyses coming in. Well, we got the home builders reporting at the same time. So we'll see what the home builders, we got LEN and KBH both reporting. We got consumer numbers coming in from yeah, from man, so bad. I can't remember their name. From Kroger's, from KR, from DRI. We've got earnings from restaurants. We got auto retail groups. So we're going to see a lot of consumer spending information as well as housing information coming in from some of the earnings reports this week. All right, my final thought before we get into the numbers, the Democrats did a great job of getting the crowds out over the weekend, but I'm not sure that they did themselves any favor. Anyone paying any attention could almost recognize the faces of the same people that were out for the protests around inauguration and that were out again for the Tesla protests. A bunch of old white women is basically who it was, and a few not very impressive old white men. And then there were the young white men who were the ones who were creating all the commotion, and they looked like a bunch of wimps is what they looked like. We would have had a name for them when I was in high school, and they wouldn't have been the guys that you hung out or I hung out with. So, but these people are sitting there and they're getting their day, they're making their week, they're making their entire life by shouting in the faces of the National Guard and of the local cops, shouting in their faces. Even, it's almost like when you go up, you're in England, and they've got their guard out there in front of the palace, and the palace guard is sitting there, and everybody goes up and tells them jokes and tries to make them smile. It's almost like that's what these guys are doing, and they look like complete buffoons. And I want to hand it to the National Guard, to all the sheriffs, to all the marshals, to all the local police officers, and everybody else that was out there over Saturday, primarily on Saturday, but Friday also. Man, they held their cool. They didn't give the Democrats any talking points. They didn't give them any videos that they could use to prove that we're in a Nazi regime. But the whole thing was about no kings. But I thought Trump said it very well. He says, look, he doesn't feel like a king. He has to fight for every vote in the House and the Senate. And then everything that he does gets scrutinized by 27 jillion courts. That's not how it works for kings. Kings just say, do it, and everybody does it. He has to get all of these people to agree with what he wants to accomplish. And his numbers are sitting at 53%. And the right way, wrong way is still sitting at 45% right way for the very first time in history. It's way up there, close to, it's been as high as 50%. I think 51% the other day. People think the country's going in the right way and they think they got the right leader. Anyway, here's what the market says to everything that I just said, and maybe more that I'm not paying any attention to. We're going to start with the equities first because it just happened to pop up on my screen. So we've got the Dow down only 55. That's only 0.13%. S&P down 3.75. That's only 0.06%. And the NASDAQ down even less, down 7.25 or 0.03%. So basically the market is saying, in fact, the NASDAQ just went green in the pre-market for a second. Now back to red. Anyway, but they're basically flat. And so, that looks pretty good for tomorrow morning. We have got the bonds not reporting yet, but last they reported, they're at 4.407. You got oil, it's up another $1.64, but that's not shocking. It's not crazy. It's at 74.64. I'd much rather be back down to 64, but it's not crazy. And so far, people are thinking that there's not going to be a real oil crisis. Got natural gas up 2.85%, $3.68. Again, not crazy. Gold advancing another $13, not crazy, 3,465. Silver down actually 0.25% at $36.26, and copper down 0.92%. You got the dollar rallying, it says here, even though what I'm seeing is it's mixed with down against the yen and up against, or I might have that backwards. Anyway, the dollar, it says, is rallying. It doesn't look that way to me. It looks mixed. Bitcoin is up $466, so no flight to safety there, sitting at 105.3. So there you are. There, and as I mentioned earlier, I cannot give you the latest Tesla because the Robinhood doesn't open for another hour or so. All right, so remember I said I would give you that card from this morning's show. If you didn't see this morning's show, you definitely want to go back and watch it. I want you to let me know if I'm wrong or if you think there's a chance I'm wrong. I don't think there's a chance I'm wrong. I don't see any way in the world that people are buying private vehicles, brand new private vehicles in 2029. That's just me. Maybe it'll be 2030. Maybe I'll be off by a year. Maybe it'll be 2031. I don't think I will. I think it's going to happen really fast because, well, anyway, look at what I said this morning and you can make up your own mind and let me know if you think that I'm crazy. So what else I got to tell you here? Oh, yeah, later on tonight, last one of the night, I'll do one more at 7:45, regular programming tomorrow. And that's all I got for you right now. So it's been great talking to you.